Two-day meeting by the Federal Reserve. Fed Chairman Jay Powell is widely expected to announce his first interest rate cut since 2008 tomorrow at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. The move coming as the U.S. is experiencing record low unemployment and solid growth. Joining us right now is Stifel Chief Economist Lindsay Piegza. And great to see you, Lindsay. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And we are seeing very strong growth and 51-year low in unemployment. But there have been some weakness spots in manufacturing and housing. Do you think that the Fed needs to cut rates?
Well, I do think that the Fed has acknowledged there is weakness in particular sectors bubbling underneath the surface. But overall, the Fed continues to tout the notion the economy is in a good place. They're simply using their tools to keep the economy in a good place. Historically, when the Fed begins to cut rates, it's because the economy has already shown that we're slowing into or near recession. This time around, the Fed says, no, the economy's not falling off a cliff. We're just taking preventative measures. We want to take action now ahead of that weakness to stabilize the economy and hopefully perpetuate the expansion.
So it seems a little bit like we're responding to what's going on in Europe.
Absolutely.
I mean, Germany's worst growth in 6 years, manufacturing slowdown there. And so it seems, is that really the motivating factor here, would you say?
Absolutely, because the question is, if the domestic economy is on such stable footing, why cut rates at all?
Right.
And the Fed has said, well, we see international uncertainties plaguing the outlook
Which
here.
is what they got wrong last year.
That's true.
Right?
And how is this going to help
good point,
the
Liz.
economies of France or Germany if the Fed cuts the rate here?
Well, it's not going to help France or Germany, but remember, these are domestic policymakers, so they're really focused on the U.S.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily care that global growth is slowing, but they care from a standpoint of it risks contagion
And if the Europeans are stimulating, that's going to impact the dollar.
Absolutely.
So if the Europeans are stimulating, the U.S. has to keep pace with that.
Absolutely. So they can't push on a string. If we see the BOJ and the ECB, as they've suggested, they're ready to add additional stimulus. Now, we know they stood pat in their latest meeting, but they're ready to provide additional stimulus through asset cuts.
Rate raises the basic question. Can central banks really stimulate an economy when you have structural problems and when you have black clouds like the trade uncertainty? I mean, if we put tariffs on autos, I don't care what the ECB does with Germany. I don't care what the Fed does here. We're going to be in a heap of trouble.
Absolutely.
Why do they overlook these structural things?
Well, we already have the chicken tax, right?
Yeah.
That 25% on light trucks.
And I think you're right. It's going to be very difficult this time around for the Fed to stimulate the economy independent of the structural issues that we're facing, simply because policy is starting from such an extremely low level. Think about 07, 01. We were able to cut rates 400, 500 basis points. This time around, we're starting from an upper bound of 2.5%.
But not to belabor the past, 01 and 07. What really stimulated the economy after 01 was the tax cut of 2003, not what the Fed did.
Right.
And 2007, 2008, we had the worst recovery from a sharp downturn just about in American history.
But why did we have the worst recovery? Because we didn't have fiscal policy in tandem with monetary policy stimulus. You had one competing with the other.
But monetary cannot overcome fiscal.
Absolutely, it can't. We need both. And even though we have seen the tax cut come into play more recently, the timing is ill-placed.
Well, it looks like
need that at the start of the recovery.
We're going to get it. Lindsay, it's great to have you. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Lindsay Piegza. We'll be right back. Tune in tomorrow, 2